everybody. Welcome back to the Rhythms and Roots podcast. My name is Donnie Hinshaw, and I am your host, and I'm super excited that you have joined me today. Hope you got a good cup of coffee or something to drink in your hand, or maybe a pillow under your head, or a trail under your feet, or maybe some heavy weights that you're pressing with your hands or your arms or your biceps or your legs. I hope you're moving. Maybe you're out on a walk. That's the whole point of this whole thing. I'm super excited about today, and yes, I am flying completely solo once again. The last episode, I shared how sometimes the plans that we have don't always pan out, and sometimes those are the best plans. I was an artist for many years, a photographer, but even in high school during art class, I remember doing this project at the end of my senior year, and I was just so excited about it. And I had one final piece that needed to be done on this pen and ink drawing that also had some airbrushing done on it. And it was this character that I created. And the background, I wanted to airbrush the background with some clouds and sky. And I was so proud of this piece. And while I was airbrushing the background, and I had everything taped off, I'm ready to go. And I started painting and airbrushing. And wouldn't you know, the airbrush that I was using dripped. And it dripped. And it dripped. And then I thought, oh no. And I was so upset, so frustrated, didn't know what to do. So I just thought, make it look intentional, I guess. Just start letting it drip. And I started letting it drip. And then I tipped it, and it started to have these streams on it and stuff. And I don't know. I thought it looked terrible because in my mind, it wasn't what I hoped it would be. And I remember taking it to the gallery and the senior show, and I was really disappointed in it, and I won this award. And one of the judges said, I love the intentionality of the drips and how it almost looks like it's a mistake, but it looks intentional. And I said nothing about it. But the reality is, would I have won without the drips? I don't know. All I know is it turned out better in the end than I had planned or imagined. And I think that is life. That is podcasting. That is running. That is marriage. That's raising children. That's work, careers, education. I feel like we often in our mind's eye have an exact idea of what it should be, and that actually fails to come to fruition. So this episode, this season, I'm starting a brand new season, season 3. This is episode 12 overall, but it's season 3, episode 1. And we're going to get to the direction of it here in just a second. But I want to start with this. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I was kind of like resonating deeply with what this guy was saying. He was the one being interviewed, and he has a very, very strong following on his podcast, like literally thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers and followers, and he's built a business out of it. I mean, it's all he does. Now, he's a pastor and a teacher. It's a very cool podcast. And as he was talking about, his name's Mike Winger. You may have heard him. He has been recently in the limelight because he's been kind of exposing corruption in some churches and pastors and leaders. And it's interesting. And some people would say he's just doing it for follows, or he's just doing that for subscribers. And truth be told, all the stuff that he's been doing recently, he's not even monetizing it. He's making nothing on it. He's putting it out there because he really, truly believes in what he's producing. He feels like there's corruption all over in our world, and we can't afford to have corruption in places of faith that people are putting their trust in these leaders. And I hope you trust what I'm doing here. But one of the things he said is, they said, why did you even start a podcast? Did you start it for the fame? Did you start it for the popularity? And he said, no. He said, I started doing these really stupid videos. And he said, finally, I did one that kind of took off. And he said, what I realized in that moment, and this was, he said, 10 years ago, he said, what I realized is that I had like 100 likes. I had 100 views. And he laughed and he said, I know like 20 of those were me just checking on the video, right? Or whatever. But he said, where I was at as a pastor at the time, he said, I wasn't even getting 80 people in a room to influence or challenge or encourage. He said, I wasn't getting any of that. So in one video, he said, I got 100 views. And I thought about how meaningful and how powerful that is even for me. I believe that what God has given me over the years that I've learned in ministry, biblically, through teaching, leadership, what I've learned in running, what I've learned in life, what I've learned in relationships and in marriage and in parenting, in all these things, it's not like they're categories. It's not like each one of them is its own thing, because it really isn't. It's one thing, and it's called life. And one of the things that I have been wrestling with lately is, how do I holistically give my entire life to faith and to God? And you're asking, well, you're the pastor, you should know these questions. You should know the answers to these questions. And the truth is, I do, but how hard is that really to live out on a daily basis? Because if you're a runner or you're an athlete or just someone trying to get better in life, to be a different person tomorrow than maybe you were today, maybe somebody that you said, yeah, I didn't like that moment that I had. I need to change. I need to change my attitude. Or I didn't like how I ate yesterday and it made me feel sick, or whatever it is. And tomorrow I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to double down and I'm going to eat differently. We all have those moments. So this podcast, even over this next season here, yes, there's going to be a lot about running. There's going to be a lot about movement. There's going to be a lot about exercise, but there's going to be a lot about emotional health. There's going to be a lot about our spiritual health, and how all three of these, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, these are not categories. It's called life. It's called life. And we're all just trying to get better. So you've probably heard somebody say to you, if you were training for something, or if you were wanting to grow in your faith and you went to a discipleship class at your church, or maybe you went through some trauma in life and you went and saw a counselor and you wanted to deal with this in a way that helped you emotionally become more stable and courageous and filled with hope, right? You've heard somebody come to you, that teacher, that coach, that mentor, that spiritual director, that pastor, say, do this harder. Do this more. Dial this in. Fix this and see the fruit. So in running, it would be something like, train harder. Stick to your plan. Fix your routine. Dial in your nutrition. Understand why you need electrolytes and how many electrolytes and how many carbs. And like there's this science to running, and everybody's got an answer for all of it. And all of it matters. But let me pause for a second and dial that back just a little bit and say, what if what you're doing physically, emotionally, relationally, maybe in your career, maybe all these things that you're doing every single day, what if all those little decisions and big decisions are actually shaping who you become? And what if God isn't just aloof? What if God isn't just some cosmic entity that I'm supposed to try to get to? Maybe God is not just some abstract being that I'm trying to perform my way to understand or know. What if God is in the nutrition plan? What if God is in the marriage? What if God is in your work? What if God is somehow weirdly, mysteriously over you while you sleep? What if God is in everything that you do, and he's just not a category? He's not just religion, in that training isn't just training, and marriage isn't just a category by itself and it's marriage, or being a father or being a mother is not just a category by itself. Because I think what happens is we silo things in life in such a way that we leave God out of most of it, and we just keep God in the one place that he's in. What if God isn't something that you add into your life? as like a category or a training plan. God does not want some weird place in your life. This is where I'm going today. He's not looking to be your number one. He's not even looking to be your number 2 or 3. He's not looking for a pecking order in your relationship with him. He's not looking for a place. He's looking for preeminence. He wants to be Lord of your life. Now, some of you are listening to this right now and you're going, man, here he goes. He's been doing ultra running talks and he's been interviewing people. And man, as I listen more and more, I'm starting to find that Donnie is really a preacher and he's a pastor and he's a spiritual leader. And I would say that is absolutely true, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't listen. I would love for you to have your ear, because I do believe truly that what I am saying today and what we're going to go through in season 3, it's what transformed my life. It's what's changed me. It's how I began to see God not as religious and not as a cosmic to-do list, but as God who is in relationship over everything that I do in my sleeping, eating, coming and going. He is everything to me. When I discovered that God wanted to be my Lord and wanted to be Lord over my life, I had to wrestle with that because if I'm really honest, I kind of like being Lord of my own life. I like having autonomy throughout my day. I like being able to get up in the morning and do what I want to do. And when I discovered that that is not the God that I serve, the God that I love and the God that loves me is not a God who wants to control my decisions. He just wants to be in them with me. He wants to walk with me in those decisions. So let's talk about it a little more. I know I've already gotten a little bit deep into that, but I hope I caught your ear a little bit. I hope you listen. If you're not a believer, if you're not somebody who is really driven by this faith perspective, or maybe you say, I have faith. I've heard people tell me over and over, they're like, running outdoors on Sunday is my sanctuary. I get that. I understand it because it is a beautiful space and I do connect with God in that space, but it's so much more. It's so much more. It's so much more than just running through a state park on a trail, because it's not always rainbows and bunnies, right? It's sometimes having to go to the grocery store. It's struggles. It's getting the phone call from the doctor. It's getting the phone call late at night and it's your son. Sometimes now he's at that age where he just calls me out of the blue and I go, you okay? He goes, yeah, I was just calling to tell you I'm coming home. But I remember the days when he was 16 and he was learning to drive and how often I was worried about him. And every time he called, I was just waiting for the conversation that he wrecked his car or something else. And the truth is, like, God is in everything. He's in all of that. He's never left me alone. He's never forsaken me, ever. And I want people to understand that. So if I get 100 people that watch this, that's more than I would have if I didn't do this. If I get 200 people that watch this, that's more than I would have gotten if I would have chosen to never do a podcast. I'm doing a podcast because I believe in running. I believe in movement. I believe in faith. I believe in God. I believe that all these things work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. That was last week's episode. Go back and listen if you didn't get to. But what if the life that you're living right now is shaping you more than you actually realize? And when I say the life, not just the big decisions, not like, do I buy a house? Are the interest rates good? Do I marry this girl? Do I date this girl? Do I marry this guy? Do I take this job? Do I move out of state? Those are the big sweeping decisions, right? But what about the small ones? What about the days that, like, for instance, maybe none of my buddies, it works out that they can go for a run with me and I go run. Is he there? Is he with me on that trail? I love company. And the reality is I never run alone. The truth is he's with me everywhere I go. but he's shaping you more than you realize in the big decisions, the small decisions, the daily rhythms that you don't even think about, the way you wake up, the way you sleep, the way you move, the way you respond to pressure and anxiety or stress, the way that you rest, and maybe even the times that you don't. Have you ever been in that place where you're just like, you wake up 3 or 4 times in the night and you get filled with anxiety because you know you need your rest? God's actually there too, and he's teaching you something. One of my friends, Don Mayle, used to always tell me, he said, hey, I had a terrible night of sleep last night, and it was basically just God's night school. And he believed that God kept him up. In the nights that he couldn't sleep, God was talking to him. And he said, I just had to be obedient and just go out, sit on the couch, and wait and listen. And he said it never failed. God would always speak to me in those moments, something very profound. But what if it's in all those things? What if he's forming you? What if God is actually with you in everything that you do? All we need to do is pay attention. Now, before we go any further, I want to give you a sense of where this season will actually go, because this isn't just another conversation and maybe just another set of conversations with other people. This is actually an invitation to you, wherever you are in this spiritual life, in this life itself. This season is called Formed. I thought about being either formed or transformed because I think both of them are true. God is forming us and he's shaping us. He's transforming us, even when we don't know it. But it's the subtitle is becoming whole in our body, in our soul, and not just our mind, but our calling, in our character, in our identity. Like if somebody asked you not only what your name was, but what's your purpose, would you tell them it was your job? What would you tell them your purpose is? Well, purpose and calling kind of like go side by side. I feel like when we truly discover our purpose or our calling in life, that's when we truly start to live. And here's the heart behind this season. So many of us are trying to grow every single day to get better. And yet so many of us get to the end of the day. Just the other day, I was feeling this. I was sitting in my office and I had journaled, got this really cool journal. Love this thing. It's called a Lockbee. If you're interested, I can put it in the show notes, but it is so amazing. And I put my Leuchtturm journal in here and I bullet journal, and it helps me process daily what I want to do and what I want to accomplish. And I had wrote everything down. I'm just dialing in for the day. And then about halfway through the day, I hadn't checked off anything. And I felt so unworthy. I felt so much like a failure. And I just got distracted. I got all kinds of things that went different ways. I got phone calls and interruptions. And then I realized, no, God was in every single one of those. Like whatever I planned didn't necessarily pan out, but what I did was important. And so often I think we feel like as we're trying to grow or get better or dial into our life, we often feel a little fragmented, or maybe even a little ADHD in our life. We've got our physical life here. So now listen to me. This is the important part. We get our physical training over here, and then we categorize and we put our spiritual life over here. And then we put our relationships, maybe primary, like right here, or we put our work or our career. And so what happens is we put everything in a place. We put our calling and our purpose in a place, our education. And somehow, some way, we're like spinning these plates in our life and we're trying to hold them all together and make sense of them. And then we go to bed at night and go, what did I do? Well, I worked out. I did this. I had my relationship. I wanted to know for the longest time, like, how do I live life in such a way where all of these find their purpose in one thing? How do I narrow all those down into one thing so that every day I feel like I'm accomplishing that sense of purpose? What if the goal of life isn't to manage all those spinning plates, those categories, those pieces, those things in life that we want to put our life into? We want to silo them. What if the invitation is to become whole? This season, we're going to learn how to do that. We're going to explore physical rhythms, as we always do, running, training, exercise, movement, getting up every day. Maybe it's just going for a walk, whatever it is. But then these spiritual rhythms, physical rhythms, spiritual rhythms, meaning prayer, silence, meditation, solitude, Bible reading, community, fellowship, relationships. But most of all, the spiritual rhythm of finding your identity in God himself and not in some abstract idea of who you want to be. So there's physical rhythms, spiritual rhythms, and the last is these relational rhythms. The idea of being in community or maybe a leader, how to lead from that identity and that core of who you are, how to heal with that character and that identity of who you become. And the last is going to be this vocational rhythm, your calling and your endurance and your legacy that you're going to leave on this earth, because all of those matter and all of them are actually connected and all of them are forming, transforming, and shaping who you become. And if there's one line you're going to hear me say over and over in this season, it's this: the life that you are living now is forming you into the person that you are becoming. Whether you like that or not, whatever you are doing now is shaping you for your future. Yesterday, I was just thinking about kind of what's going on in our world with crazy things with technology and all that. And I think one of them is just video games. I started thinking about how many video games people play. And I'm not just talking about my own kids or my grandkids. I'm talking about people in general. I know guys that are my age, 55, who spend hours a day playing video games online. And I mean, if that fulfills you, that's okay. I mean, that's fine. But I started to do the math, and I realized that if you played video games for 3 hours a day, just 5 days a week, and took 2 days off, I know a lot of people don't even take days off. They just play every day. 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And if you just played those, invested in video games every week, 5 days a week, 3 hours, you would spend one entire month a year playing video games. Let that sink in. Now put that into a lifetime. You put it into a lifetime of over 50 years playing that. Let's just say you're 50 years of playing video games. You're going to have 5 years. I think that's what it was. Something like 5 years of your life playing video games. So what happens is what you do shapes you. What you spend time doing shapes you. You know, some people would say, well, how many hours do you run? You spent how many hours in a lifetime running? The bottom line is, for me, running shapes me in many ways, not just physically, but it gets me to think. It helps me process. It helps me see clearly what I'm doing in my daily life and who I'm communicating with. I have conversations in my head when I'm running of what I need to do to shape my relationship with my wife differently. So often when I'm running, I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about my wife. I'm thinking about my children. I'm thinking about my church. I'm thinking about my friendships. And most of all, I am thinking about a relationship with God. Sometimes I run and all I do is just pray. I told some young guys that I'm discipling and working with right now last week, they said, how many miles do you run today? And I told them, and I said, yeah, last week I ran, 5 hours on a Saturday, got up early, ran 5 hours before even lunch, and came home and had the rest of the day at home. And they're like, what in the world did you do for 5 hours? And I'm like, I ran. And like, do you listen to podcasts? And, nope. I don't listen to music. I don't listen to podcasts. I just pray. And they're like, and one of them looked at me. He just said, that's amazing. Do what you need to do in such a way that it's going to shape you into becoming the person that you want to become. So here's how we're going to walk through this together. This season will move in 4 different directions. The first one is, how do we embody faith? How do we physically make it not an abstract thing, something that I have to achieve or work myself to? I think that's the relationship that most people have with religion, is religion restricts me from what I want to do, but it tells me what I don't want to do so that I will actually have some sort of element of peace. Doesn't fly with me, and that doesn't fly with most people that understand what a relationship with God actually looks like. God made the first move with me. He came to me before I ever came to him. He's been in my life before I even knew it. Psalm 139 says that he knew me in my mother's womb, that while I was being formed and shaped, he was with me in that space. That just blows my mind. You can say, well, that's just poetic, biblical poetry or whatever it is. Not if you actually understand a relationship with God, you begin to get into that space and go, no, this is the God that has known me way before I was ever created. So how do I live a life that embodies that? How do I physically live that out? The second one is this. It's the inner formation. So the embodied faith, but now how do I live it out in a physical life? But now how do I understand it from an inner self, an inner formation? What's happening beneath the surface of my life that is shaping me? And thirdly, it's relational and leadership formation. So all of you that are listening right now are probably a leader in some way. And I should say this way. If you have somebody in your life that depends on you, you're a leader. You're a leader. They're like, I'm not a leader. Does somebody depend on you for something, whether it's love or encouragement, relationship, conversation, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a wife, maybe it's work? If somebody depends on you, you're a leader. So we're going to be looking at how our relationships and our actually conform our leadership, how we're shaped in community and responsibility. And the fourth is to understand, how do we endure in this life, in that calling, in that identity, in that character that God wants to give us? What does it mean to be faithful to that over time, and what would it look like if we did? Wherever you are today and coming from today, whether you're dialed in spiritually or whether you're dialed in physically or emotionally, and maybe you're just trying to catch up on one of those three, you're in the right place. Because I believe that what we're going to discover over the next 10 episodes in season 3, you're going to find the encouragement to live a more focused life, not only in your training, but in your education, in your knowledge, in your health, in your eating, and in your life, and in your prayer life, and in your spiritual life. You're in the right place. You're in the right place, because this season isn't just about having everything in your life figured out. It's about paying attention to how you are being formed. How is your life? How is the everyday decisions that you're making forming you? How is it shaping you into becoming the person that you are? Here's the thing. If you don't like who you are, and if you don't like who you're becoming, the definition of stupidity is to keep living that life that way. Right? That's the definition of stupidity is to live the life that you don't like and never change. The point is, how do you live a life of change with optimism and courage to become the person that you want to become, but not only that, the person maybe that God created you to be? Over the last couple of years, I've been paying attention to this for my own life, not just spiritually, but physically and even emotionally, through running, through training, through pushing my body in ways that basically my body's saying, what is going on? And what I'm finding is that beneath the surface, I am changing as well. It's not just physical. Because here's what I've realized. You can separate your spiritual life from your physical life. The way you live in your body is shaping the way that you live with God. So I'll say it again. You can separate your spiritual life from your physical life, but I believe that it was never meant to be separated. It's shaping the way that you actually live with God. And I think a lot of us feel that tension. We want to grow spiritually, and we want to grow emotionally and physically, and we want to be more present, and we want to be more grounded in our life, more aligned with maybe what faith would lead us to become. But our lives often feel very scattered. They feel reactive. They feel busy. And we keep thinking things like, if I just had more time to do X, Y, and Z. If I could just be more disciplined, I could be X, Y, and Z. Then things would change. But what if transformation doesn't happen all at once? What if it happens through these rhythms that we're going to be talking about? The bottom line here today is that the life that you are living is forming the person that you're becoming. I'm going to repeat that over and over and over throughout this series. The life you're living right now is forming you into the person that you're becoming. Like that person or not like that person, the life you're living is shaping you. So the first formation is already happening. It's whether you're thinking about it or not, you are being formed. So first of all, spiritually, in Romans chapter 12, I'll read this quickly to you. It says, and this is Paul to the church of Rome, and he's actually saying, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God. So what he's saying is, he's like, I'm begging you, I'm appealing to you by God's grace and mercy that I have received. I'm kind of saying the same thing today. What I have received, what I believe, what I know, what God has given me and how my life has changed, I'm appealing to you to actually find it for yourself. He said, by the mercies of God. And then he says this, present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Allow your body to be holy and acceptable to God is your spiritual worship. And then he says, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world. If he was here today, I think he'd say, do not be conformed to the patterns that your phone is leading you to believe. Social media is leading you to believe. The news is leading you to believe. That boss is leading you to believe. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing, you may discern what the will of God is, what is good, what is acceptable, and what is perfect. What he's saying is we're told to either be conformed or transformed. I'll say it this way. You are choosing one or the other. You're choosing to conform to what you hear, or you're being transformed by what God is telling you and who you become. There is no neutral ground. You're on one or the other. Think about your day. What do you reach for first? I'm just pausing there for a second because I want you to think about it, because I think most of us reach for the same thing. And you probably know exactly what I'm going to say. Do you reach for your phone? I don't. Not because I'm a pastor, but because I'm blind. So I always reach for my glasses first, and then I reach for my phone, and I've been so convicted of this. Here's the other thing. If I reach for my phone, you know what else I'm reaching for? Stress. If I reach for my phone, I'm reaching for comparison. If I reach for my phone, I'm reaching for not only good news, but maybe even bad news through an email. What is shaping you every day? What is shaping your pace? Even your body is telling a story. Your breathing, your tension, your fatigue. You're not stuck. This is my encouragement to you. But you do, and we do, need to become aware, because you can't change what you don't notice. But if you do notice that you don't like the life you're living, don't live in insanity and keep living the life you're living. If you don't like the life you're living, make changes. Make changes, but notice where you need to change, because you can't change what you don't notice or what you're not aware of. For a long time, we've lived with this idea. This is the foundation of this message here to you today, this podcast to you today. God is less concerned about having a place in your life. He's more concerned about being your Lord or being preeminent. God is number one, right? That's the way we believe. We've lived with this for a long time. God's number one, family's number two, then work, and it just kind of goes down. Like, once again, we put God in categories. We put everything in a silo, and that sounds right. It sounds kind of noble. It sounds good. But here's the tension. If God is just a place in your life, then where is God when you're in a relationship? Where is God when you're at work? Where is God when you're on a run? Where is God when you're eating? Where is God when you're brushing your teeth? I recently listened to Justin Bieber's song, something Hallelujah or whatever it is. And if you listen to the lyrics of that song, he just goes through and he's giving praise to God for everything that God is doing in his life. And it's like one of the things that was in there was brushing his teeth. Brushing his teeth. And I love that. What happens when you only give God a place? Where is he when you're brushing your teeth? Where is he when you're driving your car? Where is he when you got the phone call from the doctor? Recently, I listened to a podcast, and I'm not going to mention the podcast because it's a very famous podcast, and this guy was interviewing a very, very famous celebrity. This famous celebrity had come into a profound relationship with God in the last 5 years, him and his wife, and suddenly started to see the benefits of faith. And so he was kind of sharing about in his life, he went through some trauma as in his childhood, but then always fell into this background of Catholic faith, and he grew up Catholic. But anyways, long story short, Catholicism to him was just more of a religion to him, and it was something that he did. He'd go to church, he'd say his prayers, he would go to confession, he would do all the things, and he felt like he was doing all those things right, which is a foundation. It really is. The Catholics had a profound position on spiritual disciplines, certain prayers you pray, times we pray, what we do, like all those things are great. Same thing with him. He started doing all those things, but still had a sense of emptiness. And then he said, but then my physical life. So I got over here, I'm going to mass, doing that. And then I have my celebrity life. I have TV, I have media, I have music, I have all these different things. And he said, I have relationships, and I have other TV personalities and celebrities. And he said, all of those things. He said, I had the house, I had the cars, I had everything. Everything was clicking. And he said, it always has clicked. It's always gone well. And he said, I just still felt this sense of emptiness and lack of purpose. He said, once I found God, once I really started to understand that God is less about an abstract idea that I worship and more of a person that I talk to on a daily basis, that I'm in relationship with. He said it was then that he started to experience the peace that the scriptures say will pass all the understanding and will guard your heart in Christ Jesus. There's something about that, though, that resonates deeply for a lot of us, because what he was saying in this too is he said, it wasn't until I put God first. And he talked about these places we put God in our relationships and all this stuff. And then as he kept talking, he began to share a little bit more. You could sense that it was like, no, he's like, I want God first, but I want God to be in my marriage. I want God to be in my career. I want God to be in my home. I want God. And it was so cool to watch, because I think we've learned to prioritize God, but not necessarily understand how to live under the banner of his love and his lordship. In Colossians chapter 1, we read these passages in 17 and 18, and I'm going to read this for you. So good. And I know some of you, again, are listening to this right now and going, if I wanted a sermon, I would just come to your church. Well, you should come to my church anyways. I'm kind of a one-trick pony. I'm sorry. If it gets down to it, I'm going to talk a lot about these type of things and how they build my faith and how they build my idea of life and purpose and perspective in life. But listen to what he says. This is Paul speaking to the church of Colossae, and he is saying to them, he's saying in verse 15, I'll start there. He says, he being Jesus, Jesus being God, is the image of the invisible God. So he's saying Jesus is God. So if you ever think that you don't know that you could ever see God, like God is just some presence, like I said, some abstract being that you'll never see, Paul says Jesus is what you can't see. He is the image of the invisible God that we've always believed in. He is the firstborn of creation, for by him, being God and Jesus, all things were created. In heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. That is so powerful. I'm running on a trail this morning. The trail I'm on was created by the God of the universe, the one that I worship, and the one who actually desires to be with me. It's mind-boggling to me. It's kind of like these astronauts that kind of circled the moon, and one of them said, I'm not really a religious guy, but somehow what I experienced in that solar system, in that adventure that he was on that no human has ever been to, he said he came back and he just felt like he needed to invite the chaplain to come in. And when the chaplain came in, he said, all I saw was the cross around his chest, and I began to weep. And he said, I can't explain it. He said, something happened up there that made me believe differently or think differently about faith. And I know why that is. because the God that actually created everything he saw that you and I have never seen is the same God that actually holds in his emotions and his thoughts and his desires and his everyday moments. So powerful to believe that. He is the image of the invisible God. That's what's super powerful. In verse 17, it says, and he is before all things, and in him all things are held together, and he is the head of the body in the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from the dead, and that in everything he might be preeminent. Love that. Love that. He holds all things together. So what God is actually saying is he said, I don't want a place. I don't want to just be first. I want to be in everything. I want to be over everything. Listen to how Eugene Peterson, he was a pastor who translated the Bible in very, very common language called the Message. And he said this, this is how he translated the very passage we read. He was there before any of it came into existence, and he holds it all together right up to this moment that you are in right now with me. If you're listening, you're still listening, you're in the car, you're on a trail, laying your head down at night, whatever it is, not only is he with me right now, but fast forward to 2, 3, 4 days ahead of this, where you're at right now, he's there too. He's with you from beginning to end. He's there, towering far above everything and everyone. He's holding you together right to this very moment. He's preeminent in your life, whether you like it or not. You can choose to not believe that, but it doesn't change that is a fact. We can choose to be distant. God is never. He's never distant. He's preeminent. He's over you, he's in you, and he is through you. When you recognize that and you surrender to that, that's when relationship with God becomes more than just an abstract faith. It becomes embodied. Now, let me reframe this. God is not asking for a place in your life, but he is inviting you into a relationship to be Lord of your life. And how that meets us in the practical moments is this. He's not just the Lord of your quiet time or your Bible reading. He's Lord of your pace. He's Lord of your body. He's Lord of your sleeping and your training and your recovery. He's Lord of your relationships and your marriage and your children and your coworkers and your good friends. He's in all of it. He's in your leadership. He's in your thoughts, both the good ones and the poor ones. He's in your failures and your successes. He knows it all. And he never holds us in a position where we should ever feel guilty. All we have to do is come and say, be Lord of my life. It's easy to put God first and still live the rest of your day on your own terms. I like that myself. It's easy for me to spend an hour in the morning or 10 minutes with God or pray and then suddenly move on to the next thing in life and live on my own terms and my own ideas. We want autonomy. And God is not like limiting your life. He doesn't like come into your life and say, okay, if you come into a relationship with me, you're not going to be able to run as much. You're not going to be able to do this as much. You're not going to be able to hang out with your friends as much. God does not limit the things that you choose. He just wants to be in them. Good decisions, bad decisions. He wants to be in all of them. And when he becomes Lord, he doesn't just meet with you. He moves with you. I love that. He doesn't just meet with me, he moves with me in everything that I do. And this is where everything connects to the spiritual life and the physical life and the embodied life through our emotions. They begin to align. All those things don't become categories. They actually start to move in the same direction. So don't just ask, did I spend time with God today? Ask, did I walk with him throughout my day? Did I recognize him being with me in everything that I did? We love big change, but transformation happens through the small decisions every single day, through the repetition, the daily returning, the daily surrender. You don't run 50 miles by accident. And in just less than 2 weeks now, a week and a half, I'm going to attempt to run 50 miles in Laurie State Park at the Quad Rock 50 with some of my friends and my family watching. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I do know that I have trained for it. Training hasn't been perfect, so the result may not be perfect, but I don't get there without building it, or without stepping into it, or without training for it day by day. Can't just go run 50 miles without any training. You have to do the small, minute steps to get there. Don't underestimate the spiritual, simple rhythms in your life. Things like a walk, a breath, a pause, a dinner, a prayer, silence. The best life and formation for life is the ones that you repeat over and over and over that are good, because they will build the life that you want to live. So here's the take home for today. You don't become something or someone overnight. You become something or someone you want to be through what you practice every single day, every moment, everything that you do. So let's take a pause. Let's just take a breath. This is our Selah moment. I've read scripture enough to you today, Colossians 1:17 and 18. Just take a breath in, and then exhale, and maybe just say something very simple. Be the Lord of my life. I'm telling you, if you pray that prayer, you've prayed the only prayer you need to pray. And then ask this question: what is forming my life right now? Am I happy with the life I'm living? If not, what's forming it? What's influencing it? What's shaping it? Where do you feel rushed? Where do you feel disconnected? Where might God be inviting you to let him be Lord? I hope you found this to be beneficial today. This week, I'm going to encourage you to choose one rhythm that you surrender to God in. One rhythm that you connect to him in. Just one. It might be your run. It might be a daily walk. It might be a specified amount of time in stillness in the morning right after you wake up. It might be a slower start to your morning. It might be a simple check-in with God through a journal or an entry into your journal. Maybe it's writing something specifically to him and then practicing what you take from that. Maybe it's breaking open the Bible. If you don't know where to start, go to the book of John. I just encourage you to start there. Read John 1 and keep going. A couple verses at a time. But what you read, say, what does this tell me about me? What does this tell me about God? And how do I live that out? Don't just do it. Do it with him. This is the Rhythms and Roots podcast. And if there's 100 people watching today, there's 100 people watching that I wouldn't have been able to influence. So if you're watching and you got to the end of this, I'm super grateful for you. And I'm praying for you. And I'm praying for God to show himself in a wild and crazy way that makes you come to the conclusion that God is like the hound of heaven, if you've heard that poem. That he doesn't give up on you, he doesn't leave you, he doesn't forsake you. He's with you in everything in life. And this season, we're going to continue to learn how we are shaped by that voice, transformed by that voice to become the people we want to become, both in physical life, training, spiritual life. So if this is helpful for you, you should drop me a follow. You should subscribe, because subscriptions are actually what moves the needle for other people to see this. And so I'd love for it to be more than 100 people, not because I'm looking to be rich. I'm looking to give people good news of how they can actually see life differently and become the people that they would only dream they could become. More kind, more loving, more peaceful, more patient, more generous, more hopeful. Thanks for joining me today on the Rhythms and Roots podcast. Hope to see you next week. We're going to have a good one. I promise you that. We'll talk soon. Blessings on you, and know that I'm praying for you. Love y'all.